Bellator. Bellator is in Ireland over the weekend. And Conor's from Ireland, right? So Conor's teammate has a fight. Conor's in the crowd. And stay with me here, because this story is going to go in some places you may not be ready. I'm going to touch on a few different dimensions and try to tie this in for you. So Conor's just a spectator relevant to the story, and his teammate wins, and Conor goes crazy. And he wants to celebrate with his teammate, which is actually, if there's one thing about this story, because this is not a great story. This is a very bad story. However, if there's one thing cool about Conor, I really appreciate that he cared so much about his teammate, that he wanted to celebrate with him, that he felt that fight with him, that he showed up and was present and was supporting him. I really respect that about him. He's always stayed with his team, same coaches, same guys, same gym. Not very many guys do that once they discover some fame. So I think that Conor deserves a little something there. Now let's talk the bad. So Conor decides he's going to celebrate with him. He wants to jump into the cage, not walk through the door, not peacefully go up and go, hey, man, can I congratulate him? Of which they're not supposed to allow, but there are some exceptions made. Sometimes some guys can get in the cage. I'll give you just a recent example. Matt Brown won over the weekend, and they let his kids come in there, both of his kids, and he held them for his interview. It was really cool. But they didn't have passes. They weren't, it was something where they go last minute, yeah, everything's good. Why don't you walk in there and support your dad? So Conor, there is a way to get in there, even around the diplomatic or around the process by using some diplomacy and being Conor in Ireland, and he probably would have got a yes. For reasons unknown, he decides to burst out of his ring, run into a secured, commissioned area, and a lot of people don't know that 4 feet around the ring is a commissioned area, meaning nobody can step in that area without commission approval. Very important. And not only is it a rule, is it a little bit of a power trip? Sure. But there's some safety issues. We go over that here in Oregon, and our commissioner is very clear. I have to have control of this area at all times, because if a fighter is hurt, I have to be able to get safety personnel in. So once you hear the reason why there's a 4-foot barrier, you go, okay, I get it. The opponent who lost the fight to Conor's teammate is hurt. He was knocked out. He's trying to get to his feet, and they're trying to get medical personnel in. That actually makes the situation worse. Whether it was Conor's intent or not, this will come into the story in a moment. Store that away. So Conor decides he's going to rush the commission area, rush the cage, jump the cage, and celebrate with his teammate. At that point, had it stopped right there, we probably wouldn't even be talking about it. It probably would have been a cool moment where a guy lost his head a little bit, but boy, he had a good intention and wanted to celebrate with his less recognizable teammate who was on an undercard, got a win in his hometown, and they had a cool moment. It probably would end there. I don't know that Mike Mazzulli would agree with me, but I probably am right. Before Conor got into the cage, he was stopped by a Bellator official named MJ. MJ reached out to stop him as Conor's coming over the cage, so Conor hits him. That was beyond uncalled for. That changed Conor and I's relationship. The second he hit MJ, Conor and I's relationship is now changed. He gets into the cage, he celebrates with his teammate, at which point the referee, Mark Goodard, comes over and is going, what are you doing in here? So Conor decides, for reasons unknown, to shove the referee, touch the referee. Oh my goodness, to explain to you, I would need the entire show and all of next week's airtime to explain to you how inappropriate and off limits that is. I mean, my goodness, to touch a referee. Cardinal sin in this business. And when he shoved him, he had to chase him across the ring. The referee kind of said his piece and realized, I'm dealing with a knucklehead here, and turned. Very professional. He said whatever he was supposed to say. I couldn't hear him, and he turned. But Conor ran across the ring. When he ends up shoving the referee, you get this domino effect with the other people that are in the ring. They go into the opponent who I told you had been knocked out. So he's now coming up to his feet. I mean, he's out of it. He was just in a war, and it didn't go his way. They stumble into him, knock him down. Now you've got a major safety issue, right? It ended up not going anywhere bigger than this. All's well that ends well. But you can see the potential problem when he knocks into a guy who is concussed inappropriately, should not be in. It's a crime. There's no other way to slice it. This is against the law. I'll tie that in a second for you as well. So, okay, he's jumped the cage. He's hit MJ, that's a tough one for me. I mean, I'm really mad about that. He pushes the referee beyond bizarre. They go into this other guy, and then he cuts a promo at the end and is insulting everybody, goes to social media and basically says F you, saying I'm right. Now, there should be a cool down period where any of us, you, me, any of our listeners, behave inappropriately and look back and go, oh my goodness, I'm embarrassed. Look, I wanted to celebrate with this guy. Not what I meant to do. Ref, I'm sorry. MJ, please don't sue me. Allow me to take you to dinner tonight and explain to you why I behaved that way if I even can. There's a part where we do need that as a society. And you're now dealing with a political mess right now. There's this story. Now let me take this in a different direction for you. I mentioned Mike Mazzulli's name a moment ago. Mike Mazzulli, if I could advise you of any executive director in America to not piss off, it's him. I respect him a lot. He commands respect. He demands respect. And on top of all of that, and that's just as a person, I mean, he takes his sport very serious, and he does not mess around when it comes to rules. He doesn't see this as, well, we've got some silly rules that we don't invoke. No. Jacob, he is the president of the Associated Boxing Commissions, the ABC. He is the top of the food chain. If there was a rule on the books that he thought didn't need to be there, it wouldn't be there. He is the president. They are all his rules, right? They've all been adopted, and he signed off on them. So where I'm going with that is a lot of people don't know that it is illegal to climb on top of a cage. You've probably seen a number of fighters do that. Vanderlei does it every single fight. Anderson does it every single fight, just by example. They win the fight. They straddle the cage. They pump up the crowd. They get their cheers. And they come down, but you probably didn't know. That's illegal. It's actually against the rules. You could be suspended. It'd be a light suspension, but you could be suspended, and they instantly, right then, can take your money. Some commissions 20%, most 10%. Now, if you're fighting for the kind of money that Anderson Silva's fighting for, $3 million, do you really want to have to give up $300,000 because you celebrated on something that was against the rules? The answer is no, and I don't think he's ever been sanctioned. I don't think he's ever won a fight where he didn't jump up and do that, and I don't believe he's ever been sanctioned. I couldn't give you the name of somebody who has. I know it has happened, but I couldn't produce a name for it. It's one of those rules that just kind of gets overlooked. Relevance being, it is still against the rules, and when you're dealing with Mike Mazzulli, who is the president of the rules, he's going to hit you for it, guaranteed. So Conor not only came on top of his cage, which is illegal. Not only came into a commissioned area, which is illegal. He came into the cage. He assaulted MJ, and then he pushed a referee into a concussed athlete. Do you see the problem? There's no way for me to make believe that this isn't a problem. It's a problem. So, other side of this, Mike Mazzulli, like all executive directors, do have a reach that's limited. It's limited to the athletes who are licensed in their jurisdiction. Conor is not licensed in Ireland where this took place, neither as a fighter nor a cornerman. So it's not an instant decision by Director Mazzulli. He would have to meet with his legal team and see, do I have scope over this guy? I am the president of the ABC. He is licensed by ABC affiliates, such as Nevada, which comes to mind. So perhaps I could go to Nevada and invoke, but I don't know. This has never been tested. I haven't been in the spot, and I'm going to need to sit down with some people, and that's where we're at right now. In the meanwhile, the UFC comes out. They as soon as they see this, and if you think for a second that Dana is going to cover this, you're wrong. Dana is big into commissions, would not hold events in any state, any city, any province, any municipality that did not have commissions, dating back to 2001, would not do it and follows the commissions to a T. If you think he's okay with this because Conor's a cash cow, you're wrong. And you're going to hear people that say that, oh, Dana's going to cover. No, you're wrong. You're historically wrong. That's not what his past is, and it's not what his present's going to be. But there is a question of, what can I do? What is my job to do anything? My job is to answer to the commission. what's the commission's ruling going to be? Now, an appropriate response perhaps would have been local law enforcement. This was a crime. He interrupted a sporting event. So let's take Conor out of it, that he is a prize fighter himself, and just say it was a fan. We've seen fans do this, particularly in the WWE. Professional wrestling. I can think of a time WCW, they jumped in the ring and Hogan and Kevin Nash had to beat the hell out of a fan just on the off chance that this fan was going to get the jump on one of them when they're portrayed as, these badasses. So they had to put it on this guy, but they arrested him. They put the guy in handcuffs and took him to the clink for overnight. Went after him after that. I mean, it was a big deal, right? He interrupted something. So local law enforcement, he assaulted MJ. He interrupted a multi-million-dollar television event. He pushed a referee, which I guess is also assault on a lower level. But that's not the route they chose to go. Nobody pressed charges. So now what do? You go to the commission. Then people are going to put this in Dana's lap. It's like, wait a minute, it's a little out of bounds for Dana. As a leader of industry, does he have some obligation here? Yeah. But don't just dump it in his lap. I always see people try to do that. Or they try to dump it in Coker's lap. It's like, wait a second. We have a chain for this, and it is the commission, in this case, Mike Mazzulli. However, the UFC contacted Mike Mazzulli instantly, within 2 hours, said, we saw it, we are not okay with it, and we are going to punish him. As a matter of fact, we were in talks to have him fight Tony Ferguson on December 30th, UFC 219. He is pulled from that card. Those talks are done. He will not be fighting this year. That's about a $10 million hit to Conor. Now, as much as his bad behavior was, and this was bad behavior, I think if you went before a jury, he's probably looking at about a $50,000 fine, right? So there is a number on, well, his next fight with Tony Ferguson would do about $10 million. So it's a $10 million hit, or at least a delay to another day. So is all good? Maybe. In the world of public opinion and PR, yeah, we might call that square. Maybe. I don't know that people would, but they might. Good move by the UFC, professional move by the UFC. Well, Conor's management came out, and Adi Attar specifically, who has been a guest on this show, I've known a long time, I have a huge respect for his professionalism, but also his intellect. Very smart guy. But I believe he missed what was going on here, because he came out as Conor's representative and denied that the UFC had pulled him off of 219. Essentially saying he was never scheduled for 219, I believe, is the inference you were supposed to get. That was at least how I interpret it. He didn't say much. He just said, and I'll quote, "It's not true." That's all he said, those 3 words. But Jacob, stay with me here. Let's look at the moving parts here, because I think they're pretty obvious. UFC knows there was a problem. They know a indefinite suspension, perhaps with a hearing, perhaps with court time, perhaps with cost. This could get kicked down the road a year before a ruling even came in. It could. That might be a long time, but it's possible. Let's get in front of this thing. Let's punish this guy, even if it's the perception of a punishment. Let's handle this like professionals, and let's get through this as quickly as possible. So when Conor's side comes out and says it's not true, which it would lead you to, I mean, I think a blind man could see December 30th is 6 weeks away. You're going to have Conor McGregor versus Tony Ferguson, but not one piece of media has come out yet. I mean, it is a little bit of a stretch to say that you're pulling him from a card and that that's a little bit of a stretch. But again, in the world of PR, even if it's a make-believe punishment, perhaps it was handled professionally. When Conor's representatives come out and say it's not true, to act as though Conor hasn't been punished, it was like, oh, no, you guys missed the play here. Let him appear to be punished. Let it appear as though, let him come out with some apologies, and that probably would smooth things, right? This isn't the world's biggest deal that he did. It's just the world's biggest talking point this week. Not good what he did, but not the world's biggest deal that he did. Got to find a way to handle it. And I think that the UFC's approach was probably it, until you stepped in front of it and said that the UFC's not telling the truth. Well, now what do? Because it falls back to the president of the ABC. It just puts him right back in the spot with no progress made. So Conor came out, he doubled down on this. He sent out some tweets, and F you all, or F them all, or whatever it said, and kind of stayed in the character, but he's starting to mark out for his own gimmick. Very common thing to do. When guys, as human beings, we are whoever we pretend to be. And when you get these guys that adopt a character, over a small period of time, they become that person. And we've seen this on the highest of levels. I'll use the Ultimate Warrior by example. His name's Jim Hellwig. He marked out for his own gimmick so bad that he legally changed his name to Warrior. His wife is like Miss Warrior. And then he named all of his kids something Warrior. It's like, dude, that's a character you're playing, Jim. Now you're being a fool. But I don't say that to tease him as much as to point out for you, this is a real thing. Actors do it all the time. The great actors will become the character they're playing for that time. Whether it's a cowboy, whether it's a bad guy, whether it's a funny guy, you become that person. I'm watching Conor mark out for his own gimmick. It's like, hey, Conor, you're not really a creep. You just play one on TV. You're not really a guy that's out of his mind, can't keep his cool. You just play one on TV. Then you go back to your real life and D and your baby and you go back to your gym and your teammates. But he's starting to mark out for his own gimmick. And people were coming out saying, oh, he's on coke. That's the only reason he'd act that way. He was drunk and he was on coke. And it's saying, I don't think that's right. He probably was drunk. That part's probably true. But, I think he just kind of lost his cool. I think the excitement got to him. This was a bad thing. We've just seen it so many times, Jacob, where fame and money have changed people. If you want to add the third ingredient, which Conor was fortunate to have, was youth. Now you've got youth, fame, and money. We have not seen that combination end well very many times. And when I watch him on this slope, I watch him misbehaving and acting a fool. I watched him assault two different people and break these rules. It's very hard to not come to the conclusion of, Conor, you got to slow down a little bit. He did a video right after that got captured, and he's with his little team, and he's justifying his actions. And there wasn't one of them that said, hey, you broke the rules. You overshadowed the fight. You assaulted MJ, that really makes me mad. I go off on that. I can tell you all about it. Change Conor and I's relationship. Pushed a referee. Put your own license status, put the entire sport, put the return to Ireland. I mean, you did a lot of things right here trying to get yourself attention or celebrate. There's plenty of ways to do it. Go in the back and give the guy a hug like everybody else is going to do. Why should you be in the ring? It's just a really bizarre thing to do. It was more alarming that none of his teammates, even in the post-fight explanation of this behavior, grabbed him and go, hey, what the hell? I can just tell you, and I'll use myself as an example, had I broke bad like that, Clayton Hires would have pulled me aside so goddamn fast. Mike Mazzulli would have seen what Clayton Hires did to me and wouldn't have even suspended me. Go, we're good here. That's how it would have been. And I would not have said word one back to him. Would never happen. But there doesn't appear to be somebody that's taking that kind of a leadership role. And I don't want to rain on Conor too much as break down for you what I saw. I do want to rain on him. This is bullcrap what he did, particularly the MJ thing. The whole thing was wrong. Then he's going to push Mark Goddard. Come on, man. That's a tough job, too. Mark's got a job to do. He handled it right. A lot of people wouldn't even approach Conor because they get starstruck. You got a good referee that goes, I don't give a damn who you are. I have rules to follow, and I'm going to follow them with integrity. And that's what he did exactly. Then everybody's come out for Mark Goddard to make a statement afterwards, so he finally did, and it couldn't have been more perfect. He didn't try to get himself any fame. He didn't try to put Conor down. I think his statement on this entire statement was something like family first, everything else second, which has nothing to do with anything. It was just a cool thing to say, right? So now you know the story, man. But, I mean, what do you think of that? I'm surprised you didn't hear about it, but there you go.
Wasn't it only about a month ago that Conor rushed the commission area? And
that was Mark Goddard that yelled at him and told it. Yes, exactly. So that's why Conor was mad, is because Goddard did that. Yes, you're exactly right.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, I can understand getting excited. And then he ran up and was shouting like coaching terms and tips to his teammate while the fight was going on. Mark Goddard's like, hey, back out now. And that was a little bit of a talking point. Not big. I mean, he didn't do anything horrible. It seems like he didn't learn anything.
Yeah, not only not learn anything, he went even further with it. And then, speculation is that's why he pushed Goodard is to get even for that last one. It's like, hey, Conor, there's a bunch of rules here. There's a bunch of rules. He probably didn't even know. I'm sure none of our listeners did, or even you, that there is a 4-foot area around the cage that is commissioned only, but very specific for safety so that they can get in and out whenever they need to. There's even less things so they can move around and turn the scorecards in. And I mean, there's some stuff, but they need space to work. The commission's working, right? It looks like just a show and everybody's having a good time and the commission just has really good seats. No, they're working. You just don't see what they're doing. They're working the entire time, right? Whether you're the timekeeper or you're one of the judges or you're one of the doctors or you're the executive director, they're working the whole time and they need their space like anybody else. So, not good, and I don't really wish that something too bad happens to Conor here. A year would probably be very appropriate because that's what other people would do, but he may be able to make this right monetarily. He may be able to go, look, fine the hell out of me, but don't suspend me too long. Look, I broke bad, and he may be able to, but it could be too late. Once 3 or 4 days go by and finally you come out with the right statement, that's nothing the way we've heard you speak ever before. So now we know that somebody did grab you. Some PR person gave you the statement and you just put it out. It takes away from it. It takes away from it. The moment to go, man, I lost my head was right then. Or the moments following. Or the hour following. Or the day following. He missed all of those. He went just the opposite. Right? He tried to double and triple down on this. And it's like, Conor, it doesn't work that way, man. It's the number one lesson in life. Anything that goes up must come down. It's a rule of biology. Anything that is red hot can only cool off. Conor, you haven't been through this before. You're still new, and you've had a lot of success. You can only go down at some point. You can only cool off at some point. So don't try to overstep here. Whatever you do, don't try to overstep. Stay in your lane. Come to your press conferences, go insane, wear the outfits, sell the tickets, let them pop the popcorn, serve the beer, make your walk, do your best, grab the microphone, and then go back to your life. Quit marking out for your own gimmick, Conor. This isn't real. You're not really a guy that walks around in Rolex watches and wears bow ties. You're the son of a plumber. Same as me. Same path. My father's a plumber. Your father's a plumber. You wanted to get in a fight. I wanted to get in a fight. I get it. Your name's not Warrior, Jim. But you see this a lot. You see it a lot. And it's not as much of a negative commentary on him as much as just an observation that, hey, this dance has been done. You're not reinventing the wheel. And as much as you think you're a genius to MMA, you're not. You're a regular guy that got some play. There was somebody as big as you a couple of years ago that could walk past the street right now and people want to know who it is, named Ronda Rousey. It goes really quick. That's not an insult to Ronda. It goes really quick. She was red hot. Only thing she could do is cool off.